everyone. I'm so excited to be here today with Kyle Trautmann, and he is with High Vibe Holonomics. And we're going to talk today a lot about trauma and healing the nervous system and just what that means. But Kyle, would love to hear from you on just who you are, a bit of your story, and then we'll get into what you do. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm just a man practicing energy.
yeah,
So
I love
essentially, and for me, I'm not too keen on titles, but I am the CEO and lead facilitator here at High Vibe Holonomics. And we just switched over to a rebrand literally within the last couple of weeks, because we were known as High Vibe Healing, and then we switched over to Holonomics, which is the study of taking care of energy as a whole. So not missing any piece of what energy actually entails within the system. And yeah, we just celebrated our 7-year anniversary this past September, so that's really awesome. And I'm just a very simple guy that just cares about kids, like the education in the family, to be able to keep kids on the up and up when it comes down to health in such a toxic world. That is the number one reason why I wake up in the morning. So yeah, simple, very sweet, just about me. It's just a kid, I would say kid, right? A guy that just cares about the families out there that are doing everything that they can to stay above water when it comes down to all the bombardment we get from the environment.
Yes, which is everywhere, I know, and from a mind
100%.
body spirit
Yeah.
perspective.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Congrats on your 7 years, by the way. That's
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
It's
Long
incredible.
journey. Long
Yeah,
journey.
I
And it
know.
feels like it just gets started. So if you're familiar with Rudolf Steiner's 7-year cycles of renewal, so it's like once you hit 7, boom, it's a new one. They call it the 7-year itch in marriage too, where it's just like something just starts to get ruffled under the feathers and then it pops and blossoms. So every 7 years you get to recycle and become new. And that was the purpose behind the rebrand. So we're going in with fresh energy, and I would say more mature energy too. So
Yeah,
that's going to be really,
yeah,
really cool.
yeah. And so what led you to originally start your company? And
Oh yeah. Yeah. The ultimate question. Every single person, in my family was sick. Like literally, my brother had juvenile diabetes by the time he was 9. And I always tell people, don't allow, that narrative that, these diseases start because they're genetic. We know now about epigenetics that literally, less than 1% of diseases that are actually out there that are genetic based.
yep.
But my dad was sick. He had stage 3 ulcerative colitis. My mom still struggles with 4 autoimmune conditions. And then I battled really off and on, but heavily, for about 11 years with substance abuse, and went through a multitude of overdoses, had a near-death experience in 2015. And I was just like, something's got to give.
Yep.
Something's got to give. And I had credentials as a nutritionist. That's where my career started in
Yep.
2013 and 2014. And then in 2016, we were just like, time to put up High Vibe Healing. And then just went for it. So just a kid with a dream.
That's incredible though. Like to turn your
Yeah.
life around. I'm so sorry to hear about, everything you've gone through.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's incredible what you've turned it into. And
Thank you.
that's so tell us a little bit more about High Vibe Holonomics, but then I also want to get into, because it's confusing, I think, for people when they're going to heal, because they're like, I just need a nutritionist, and not understand
Right.
like
Yeah.
the whole mind body connection behind that. So we can go there, but I want
Yeah.
to hear more about what it is that your company is and what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. The cool part about what we really start to open up for people is the concepts beyond the philosophy, right? So it's like the constructs within energy. What does it really mean? The
Yeah.
big thing that we always tell people is like you have 3 major energy dynamics, right? Everybody talks about healing on the cellular level. I love that. That's great because obviously we're made of trillions of cells, right?
Mhm.
But we take it 2 notches below. We start at the atomic structure, which we teach the observer effect, because if you do not pay attention to anything, nothing comes to fruition. So wherever your attention goes, energy flows. Very, very simple, right? So we have to teach you through visual sequencing how to properly focus in a very distracted world, right? Because if you're very distracted, it's very easy to be programmed. The second component is the molecular structure, which is adenosine triphosphate, how to produce as much biological currency within the system as possible. And then we get to the cellular aspect about cleaning out the mitochondria and helping alleviate and essentially, eliminate the cell danger response. And the cell danger response is just Whenever the mitochondria is perceiving a threat, whether that's intracellular, extracellular, or out here in the environment, it shuts down the production of ATP. And this is where you start to get chronic fatigue. And there's plenty of studies out there where it's like adverse pre-onset experiences, which just are compounded micro lacerations of trauma over time, start to beget the notion of chronic fatigue syndrome.
Oh, it's so fascinating to me. And
Yeah.
I've only heard about it at the cellular level. And so,
Mhm.
and worked with a ton of practitioners, and that's what we're working on and stuff. So trying to get down to it. And that's why I really don't think it does matter what condition you have, but like for myself, I've 2 autoimmune conditions and Lyme disease, chronic Lyme, stuff like
Right.
that. But it hasn't mattered, when you try to address it at the root of it,
Yeah.
it kind of
Yeah.
affects all of it.
And
So
the big thing based off of that, the latter part of your question is why you need more than just nutrition is because nutrition is I would say it is foundational, but it's like third in line. We were talking a little bit off camera about what is most effective to the cell danger response. One is purpose. There's a special energy about people who are driven, right?
yep,
You can just, even though some person's not sick but they're not driven, you can just feel it, right? They're
yep,
like, you just kind of really want to be around their energy. But when you have purpose, it drives the metabolic advantage. But if you have a big, and I mean congested trauma physiology within your body, it's going to be like grinding gears. So that's why you need more than just nutrition, right? And for all intents and purposes, that's why holonomics is such a huge importance in our work, is because every single thing that we focus on is through the 3 minds. You have the conscious mind, very simple. We call the brainstem the analytical mind because it's the purveyor of the reticular activating system. It's what's being projecting everything out here based on the programming. But then also you have the subconscious mind within that notion as well. So we have a 3-step process: conscious dynamics, which takes care of anything that you could think of consciously to create energy. We're talking about hormesis schedule, non-sleep deep rest schedule. We go into breaking down movement plans, BMRs to total daily energy expenditures. We break it all down in our consultations just to see what exactly you're looking for on that side. Subconscious dynamics, very, very simple, but it's also a little bit more complex because that's what trauma is. It's very, very complex. It's
yep,
one of the most just fascinating things on this planet. We take people through the trauma continuum as well as the stress maturation scale, because we have to properly teach you the differences between stress, adversity, and trauma. They're 3 different things, but in this marketplace, people lump that all together as trauma, and that's not the
yep,
case. Trauma is what is stored within the body. Obviously, adversity is the perception of the experience, and stress is from the stimuli that comes from the environment. So you have to just know these differences, these subtle exchanges, so you know how to, navigate through space. And then our third component is foundations of the mind. We really teach you how to discern the environment with your reticular activating system once it's fully up and running and optimized to be able to see this landscape, not from the visual cortex, but from that reticular activating system. Because once that's clean and properly programmed, life's just different.
yep.
It's just different. There is no such thing as dis-ease, but there is things as aches and pains, but those are modified by quick things that you can do within the conscious dynamic. So we really do an overhaul. And some people come in that are really mental athletes. We get a lot of athletes within, our facilitation, but we do get a lot of people that are just like, hey, I'm debilitated. Where can we start from the bottom?
Yep.
And we take you there as well. So it depends on what people look for, but those are the major 3 things. We want to make sure that we're hitting the neocortex, the conscious mind. We're definitely hitting the limbic system within the unconscious mind. But most importantly, we're really, really focusing on the brainstem within the reticular activating system and also that analytical discernment.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, I wish I had found you 8 years ago.
I love it.
I kicked off my journey. Um, for people who that sounds, it's a lot to take in and process and stuff like that too. So
Yeah.
what do you usually find that people resonate with as far as like a symptom or condition that they're coming to you with and stuff like that?
Yeah. The biggest one that we've seen lately is confusion,
Okay.
being lost. What
Yep.
is the meaning of life?
Yeah.
What is the purpose and clarity of moving forward?
Yep.
Because there is a lot of people that come within our facilitation and they're like, look, I've worked with every single person
Yep.
you know, what's different. I was like, okay, well, are you properly addressing the major key components to your stress maturation scale? And what I tell people is, if you look at Maps of Consciousness by Dr. David Hawkins, it's very, very simple, right? You look at all these densities: grief, resentment, anger, shame, guilt, all these things that are really low on the threshold of frequency, which we call emotional hell. It's essentially, purgatory for you to try to enjoy this existence. And they're too density in nature, right? So
Yep.
once we see people come in, they're like, I don't know this, and I'm like, cool, have you properly grieved?
Mhm.
Right? In this society, we're not taught how to properly grieve anymore. It's like, oh,
Nope.
keep doing this, keep going, keep pushing, keep grinding, essentially, right? But if somebody is going through a grieving cycle, that's way different, right? We have to take a different component to that, because things change, right? The reason why you need energy is because you're going to go through adversity in life. And one of my favorite mentors, Inky Johnson, said there's three types of people who are going through adversity, people that are coming out of adversity, and people that are just about to step into it.
Yep.
Like, life is extremely challenging and it's hard, right?
Mhm.
So if you don't have the tools energetically, which is everything, because if you have no energy, you have nothing,
Yep.
right? It's very, very simple. So we just make sure that, the people that are coming in have that clarity too, because if you're confused in the system, you're not going to take action, right?
No. Nope.
And you're also frozen, which is a trauma response. So we have to teach you the basic curriculum, because a lot of people that come in, and I don't knock anybody, I love everybody that's out there trying to help people, but it's too much books, it's too much this, it's too much modules. It's like, look, you need a simple practicum so you can get on with your life,
Yep.
right? Because if you need energy, you come to us as a one-stop shop here for change, but then
Yep.
also giving you the education, simple practicum, so you can go back to things that you care about, right? Like finances, or you're an investment banker or something, whatever you are, so you can focus on your craft, right?
Yep.
What our biggest thing is, seeing people that I just need help directing the thought
Yeah.
process, right?
Yep.
Clearing out the default mode network, clearing out the junk that essentially gives them clarity of mind.
Yep.
And when you have a new perspective lens, everything changes.
No, that's so incredible. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that. Like, friends I have in it, like,
Mhm.
what's my purpose? What am I doing? What, and
Yeah.
you get stuck, and it's like, and
And you
everybody
get
will,
sick. And you
yeah,
get
yeah,
sick.
yes, yeah. And they're all sitting there like, I know the steps I need to take. I'm just not doing it. And it's like, but yeah, why? Like, do you actually know what
That's
your purpose
it.
is? And they're
That's
like,
it. And see, that's the main cog. Like I emphasize this when I talk with everybody. Like, look, if you don't know, it's okay. But until you get clear, you need to do the work, right?
yeah,
And people are like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, cool. Have you done foundational work? Have you cleaned out your reticular activating system? Have you cleaned out the programming that starts from 0 to 6? And people don't realize your entire life is built by your 7, right?
yeah,
50% of you is mom and dad, and then by process of egocentrism in psychology, everything is written by the time you're 7 years old,
yeah,
right? So if you haven't gone back and taken care of anything during that time frame, no wonder you're confused,
yeah,
right? No
yeah,
wonder you're confused. Like, that's the biggest thing, because we have a lot of people that come into, our facilitation, and they're just like, I know I have trauma.
hmm,
And I'm like, okay, yeah, we all do. We've all gone through adverse experiences, but
yep,
where are you wanting to go?
hmm,
Where are you wanting to go? Because we go back to the past just for reference and to clean it. We don't go back to sit there and keep talking about it.
yeah,
I have a lot of people too that come into our facilitation. One lady a couple of weeks ago, she was just like, how do I let go of the past? I was like, you're at the perfect place,
yeah,
right? Because what
yeah,
we do is we just track and trace simple earliest memories that imprint on a young child, and we just clean the synapses out. Very
yep,
simple, very gentle, very
yep.
non-invasive.
What
So
are the tools like to do that, or what are the activities that you can do
yeah,
to,
absolutely. So we do a very unique process through our subconscious dynamics session. I teach flow state. There was a lot of great research that I, came about with in the last couple of years out of Harvard that was teaching how to get into more flow state to actually alleviate trauma from the system. And the development of subconscious dynamics goes through 15 to 20 different techniques. So what's really fascinating is if you can teach people flow state and how to properly dialogue with their nervous system, that memory will surface every single time.
wow,
Like, unless you're clouded with like a bunch of stuff, like obviously if you have say for instance you've been drinking or stuff like that, because we don't take like super high risk, clients like that, because there's too many band-aids on the wound. But when you can learn how to be in a proper parasympathetic dominance, and then we have a trusted facilitator talk to your nervous system as if I'm talking to you right now, it will literally tell me all the answers, because the faculties within the subconscious don't have the ability to lie to you because they're non-personalized. The only part of our being that actually lies to ourselves all the time, and then also lies to other people, is the rationale, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's the biggest thing, is if we can teach you psychosomatic dialogue, which is speaking to you, to
Yep.
your nervous system, so your nervous system can speak back, that's when we can start to understand what ails you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the biggest alleviation too. And we teach a lot of techniques about perspective time too, because obviously the neocortex is linear. And then obviously the limbic system is eternal, right? That's
Yep.
where we get the Akashic and the collective stuff like that. So when we can teach simple principles of quantum physics, simple psychosomatic dialogue, and track and trace earliest imprints to be able to reconfigure through your reticular activating system, there's just nothing that can stop you. There just really isn't, because once that stuff's cleared, now you have, freedom to be able to go animate, right, through life. That's what your spirit is here to do. It's supposed to animate itself.
And have the confidence and the clarity and
Absolutely.
the clarity to just do that. Yeah, no, I think that's incredible. It's like life coaching, and it's so beyond that, but like, it's like
Yeah.
practitioners and modalities into one. It's
Right.
like,
Yeah, it's really fun to be able to just be on the other side, because there's four main reasons that, people don't understand the education behind how programming embeds. And once they understand those four simple ones, it starts to become a game changer. And then it starts to become really, really, I wouldn't say addictive, because I'm not a fan of that word, but it becomes almost obsessive. It becomes a passion, right? And when you learn that the being itself learns through repetition,
Yep.
on a consistent basis, right? Learns through somatic cueing, through color psychology, which is
Yep.
very, very beautiful. But then also high emotional impact experiences, there's the trauma, but then also at the same time through depictions, through reconfiguration, right? So, and if everything out here, for instance, is a hologram, right? We can reconfigure any desire within a depiction within your toric field. And if anybody doesn't know what a toric field, your toric field is literally 9 meters out in front of you and 9 meters across. And it creates a geomagnetic force field, which is called boundaries, right?
Mhm.
So we're taking these like really ancient knowledges, breaking them down into simple quantum physics, giving a very easy step-by-step flow sequence for anybody we work with. Our youngest is 13. We're
Wow.
13. Yeah.
That's
It sounds like a lot of words because it's just the science, but once you step into our facilitation, we handhold you to understand the process, and by the time you get to your second or third session, you're like, yeah, I'm hooked. So
yes,
fun.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's why, again, I was like, I wish I had access to this a long time ago, but that's why
Yeah.
we're now having platforms like this to
Yeah. Oh, it's
to
beautiful.
people.
It's beautiful.
Can you explain too, just to people listening, what trauma or what those first 6 years do? Like, how does that sit in your body? What could be some of the
Yeah.
things that are happening because of
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. So we actually teach the main foundation of psychoneuroimmunology. It's how your how your thought process affects your neurological function within the immune system. But then also at the same time, holonomic brain theory. That's where holonomics got its start. And what that says is any perceived or deemed traumatic experience within the system, the actual senses have to disperse that experience through 1,000+ neurons per square inch of the body. And then through the neurological aspects within those neurons, it's suspended in water. It's suspended in the cell's basis of water, which is about 99% water. So that is how trauma just in general is stored within the body. But 0 to 6, the reason why it's so imperative to really dial in that time frame is because you don't have mental faculties yet. From the ages of 0 to 2, you're primarily in delta. It's the reason why a baby can barely stay awake more than average 7 minutes at a time, right? And then on top of that, once you get to 2 to about 6, you're in theta. You're modulating in and out of theta, right? You actually don't develop any mental faculties until you get to 7. That's when you start to get into alpha, which is creative imagery, deeper relaxation when you're in those states. But that's when you start to depict, right? You start to see the images within the confines of your own personality. So from 0 to 6, you're a brand new slate. But also at the same time, the perfect part about that is then you have adverse multi-generational experiences before that, the
Yep.
ancestral conflict before you even come earthside. We take care of that stuff too. So we teach the 7 dynamics of health, the 7 requirements of change, what you have to do, a simple formula to be able to stay within that process, but then also the 7 types of trauma, which really focuses on 0 to 6, but then more so everything prior to birth side, if we can get there, right? So obviously the more work you've done on yourself, it'll be easier of a process. But yeah, once you get into those womb conflicts, like those, yeah, it is like seeing people essentially being reborn right in front of you. It's pretty fascinating.
That's incredible. And what are the 7 types of trauma?
Yeah, so you have, so not a problem. So you have adverse pre-onset experiences. That's things that are stacked up over time. And then what really started to open me up was the notion of adverse non-declarative experiences. These are things that we can't remember, right? So we have a 0.006 to 5% bandwidth of our conscious awareness. That's it. Everything else is subconscious. That's why the subconscious runs it. So adverse non-declarative experiences, those are also known as ANDLs. You have adverse childhood relationship experiences.
Okay.
Who are the people that you are keeping around your children?
Yeah.
Who are the people that you are allowing around your children, right? This could be a pastor, it could be the uncle, it could be the daycare center, it could be a teacher. Very important to go through that process too. Adverse life events or adverse life experiences, those are our totality of things specifically past your 18th birthday. So that starts to grow in incremental steps of 3 to 5 to 10 years, because obviously as you grow, you're not growing biologically, you're growing cellularly, right? So if you still have trauma in your cells, that's how you age, right?
Yep.
That's what's really fascinating. The biggest one everybody should know out there by now is adverse childhood experiences. Biggest renowned study out there, in my humble opinion. That is the cream of the crop. If you read that and you consume it, you'll be like, all right, I need to work with a practitioner ASAP. Like I need to work with somebody that's dealing with this, because once you have a high enough ACE score, it starts to just assume within the system that you're going to get sick in some form of life. It could be divorces, it could be through prison time. It's wild. It's one of the greatest studies ever done. You also have adverse babyhood experiences. That's all the things that happen from 0 to 2, right? So those are things like circumcisions, C-sections. Those are probably the most predominantly challenging for children, just because there's more neurological development happening by the age of 2, just because there's so many neurons and synapses and connections firing. And then the last one is adverse multi-generational experiences. So they found through research that they can carry up to 14 lineages of generational trauma, specifically from worms, right?
Oh my
But
God.
we've found within our sessions that we've been able to go back as far as 52 generations.
That's insane.
Yeah. So everybody's walking around. This is the reason why kindness and compassion is numero uno here, because most people, especially in times like, now, like people don't realize, yes, the world may seem crazy, but like the world has always been crazy. There's always been stuff going on. But the biggest thing is, it's the most important thing is peace, kindness, and compassion. And when you can hold that within your system, it's you have integrity. And that's really what integrity is holding in that wholeness. So those 7 dynamics of health, or excuse me, the 7 types of trauma, the reason why there's 7 powerful ones is because 7 represents the number of power. So this all works hand in hand and synergistically when you can really open up to it.
Wow, that's so much good information. Again, I've told you before, 150 conversations and podcast interviews, and I've never heard any of this terminology.
Wow, that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah. So no,
Perfect.
this is all amazing. And just so I know, people kind of get overwhelmed when they hear like themselves and stuff like that. So what's it like working with you and your team? And I know it's different for everyone, and the timeline is different, but people will be like, I just don't have time to fit stuff in. So how do you work?
You're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
You're lying to yourself. I'm gonna tell everybody, this is what, the biggest thing for me to share, if you have any sense of any inclination of something may be off, like with anything, whether it's your body, whether it's your mind, or something just doesn't seem like it's quite clicking, you need to work with somebody. Like everybody should be doing at least foundational training, but then also core training, because foundational, what we call is the discernment, right? So if we sat down and you went through the foundations of the mind, foundational, right? You're starting to understand different principles of how to discern healthfully in the world.
Yep.
But then the core work, that's the sticky stuff. Okay, that's the stuff everybody's running from. Right? But the reason why people love coming to, and I'm blessed with this gift, when people come into this facilitation, the truth just comes out. I don't know what it is about me. People just sit down and they're like, I'm telling you a bunch of shit that nobody else has ever said. And then within our program orientation, we build this around your responsibilities. We work with a lot of stay-at-home moms, right?
Yep.
And we work within this notion, this infinity concept, that time is the only thing that's finite, right? So if you can structure your time to master your time, and then we can teach you how to prospectively bend time, you'll be able to clean up timelines, right? And when you clean up timelines, guess what you get back? Energy.
Oh,
Well,
and
you get
then
energy. You get energy back. Well, the thing is, if you start to look at all these things in your past, once you start clipping them and you start clipping them, all that energy has to come back to the present moment. Right. And 90% of our energy that we utilize is used to suppress the experiences of the past.
What percentage was that?
90%.
Well, that is mind-blowing.
That's why everybody's tired, right? So once we can start getting a nice systematic flow, and people sit down and be like, look, you are the most important thing on this planet. You need to love yourself like your life depended on it. You know, you need to really start to own in that time. And this is the consistency part, right? If we teach you the principal laws, you know, of consciousness, there's two primaries: the law of repetition, which is your neocortex, and the law of association, which is your limbic system, how you associate to the world with your senses. If we can teach you that and hardwire that into you, then you'll have time to do this. You can do it in the shower, right? When you come in and do these sessions, it doesn't take that much time. And then all you have to do is just a little bit of maintenance. And that's the neurological massaging that we do. So,
and how do you find people work with you for like 3 to 6 months, or
so we always suggest at least we're talking at least 4 months, right? So it does take 66 days to embed a neural pathway. That is from the College of London in 2009. That's a renowned study. That's an international study that started to take shape, because everybody's like, oh, it takes 21 days, it takes 90 days. I'm like, look, the science told you it takes 66 days. So we make sure that we hold your hand for the first 9 weeks. That's why there's always 9 foundational laws in all of the foundations of the mind that we do, because 9 is the numerical value of completing a full cycle. Once you complete a full cycle, boom, you're back to a new cycle, right? You start over again. So when we go through this process and people sit down with us, we're just like, look, this time is nothing. It's a blip on your radar. How much time did you allow or mismanage your energy for these conditions to find you? And we're lovingly cutthroat. It's like, look, these diseases are your responsibility. They are causation of your mismanagement of your energy, right? Other than that, you wouldn't have these issues. So now if we're like, hey, if this took up to 40 years to produce and you can't give yourself 9 weeks, you don't love yourself enough. You're like, oh, well, the life got in the way. I'm like, life is always going to be there. Right? It's one of my favorite quotes by James Baldwin. He's like, look, write a book or read a book, you know, take a nap, you know, step away from life, because when you wake up or you come back, life will always be there. Right? It will always be the perfect excuse until it's not, until you're not here. Right? Until somebody that you care about, you know, that loves you, it has to miss your presence because you haven't decided to take care of your health. You have to take care of it at an energetic level before you add in all the other things too. And mitochondria is very unique, especially when you treat it like the respect it deserves. It has a 34-day full life. Mitochondria does. So the half-life is 17 days. So I tell people, like, really get nitty-gritty and kind of uncomfortable for those first 17 days, which is about 2.5 weeks, for you to see the ball moving. Once you start to see the ball moving, boom, it's the snowball effect. This stuff just keeps compounding. And that's the thing. If we can get you to just get it done within those first 17 days, like it's just, you get hooked. You get hooked.
And now in these, because I know you eventually get to like diet, exercise, movement, whatever. Is that introduced right up front as well, or?
Yep.
Yep.
So our program, Holonomic Energy Harmonization, we give you an entire flow sheet of everything that you could possibly need. And if you need customization, those are what the program orientations are for. So if you need us to dial in a paleo, this
Yeah.
eating this many calories because you're working out this many times. I mean, we have somebody that is, has a physical activity level of 3, right? Has a decent amount of responsibilities. So we're
Yep.
like, oh, we plug in a system specifically for that. And then you cater it to the subconscious dynamics. I had one lady out of Florida. She had one session. She's just like, I'm obsessed with this stuff. Like the way people are coming to me. Because when you play the physics, remember your thoughts are electric, right?
Yep.
And electricity has to go outwards. It's extended, right?
Mhm.
And then you have electromagnetism within the physics side because the feelings are magnetic, right? So if you feel like shit, anxious, compounded, claustrophobic, what do you think you're going to get more of,
That's
right?
what you, yeah.
And that's the density that we release. Because if you are just feeling saturated in those 2 density containers, the only thing that's going to help is alleviate that. And then you start to add in the foundational tools on the conscious side. And then it just becomes a game. And then it's fun.
Wow. So
Yep.
you must see some unbelievable stories of what people come
Oh
in like
yeah.
feeling lost to totally like,
Oh yeah.
I have my mission, vision.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like literally, I mean, and it's not like about the woo-woo kind of like manifestation law of attraction, but it's very, very, very keen on this notion is that your frequency, the way that it's set up, is going to come into your life in a very dynamic way if
Yep.
you treat it with respect, right?
Yep.
So we always teach flow state just so people can understand how to set up
Yeah.
their day, right? And if your stuff is discombobulated, you definitely need to take a giant step back. You need to look at all these things specifically in front of you, and you need to reassess your priorities so your energy can be managed. Because if your energy is chaotic because you're not managed correctly, you're going to get sick. It is a guarantee. I
Yep.
see that happen 24/7. When people come to us and I'm like, hey, cool, do you have a flow? Do you have a routine? Do you have something? They're like, oh no. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what I mean, what do you expect at the end of the day? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I'm very, very just like, what do you expect?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
You should be defined by
Yep.
the desires that you have within yourself, for
Yep.
sure.
100%. And people just need guidance on where to get there. Even
Yeah.
myself, I've been caught in that. Like I get
Yeah.
caught still to this day. Like, and then I get stuck. I'm like, I have 800 things to do. And instead I do
Hmm.
because you get in that
Yeah.
stuck energy of it.
Oh, yeah. Analysis by paralysis, easy.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
paralysis by analysis, however it goes, which
Yeah.
way. But the fun part is like when you understand that trauma is just an egoic state of mind, and the egoic state of mind has 4 personalities, right? You're either a fighter, you're a flighter, you're a freezer, or you fawn.
Yep.
That's it. And they all have foundational characteristics. So when your ego is triggered, right, and you're
Yep.
in that egoic state, you're in a traumatized state. That's how subtle it is, right?
Wow.
So once you clean out the trauma, guess what has to happen? Your personality has to change.
Yeah.
It has to. That is not only just a fundamental truth,
Yeah.
not only just a foundational truth, that's physics, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
if the energy changes within the egoic mind, the conscious mind has to change because the egoic mind is projecting into the cerebral cortex, which spreads everything out with your visual cortex. So once we start to just realize that this stuff becomes fun, the
Mhm.
first things that we have to do is learn how to let go and surrender through the process, and then also challenge yourself to this notion that every single thing that you were told in your
Yep.
life was a lie. And it doesn't mean that it was a bad lie. It's just it was a lie.
Yep.
Other people have agendas, right? And we got to stop with this whole narcissism thing. Like it's been proven since the 1850s, everybody has baseline narcissism. In the new age community, it's called survival, right? You're living in survival, or I wouldn't even say just the new age, just in the
Yeah.
jungle of life. It's called survival, right? And
Yep.
that's baseline narcissism, right? So once you start to understand that we can get past that, past the reptilian brain, the portion that's just keeping you being like, I gotta just do this, pay my bills, this,
Yep.
then we get to see who you really are, and who you really are is spirit.
Yep. Getting
That's who
your
you.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because you're no name, you're no title, right?
Yep.
Most people are just like, oh, hey, Kyle, what's going on? And I'm just, there for reference because they know me by name. Other than that, I'm purely just spirit animating on a screen for people to be able to get, whatever they need while they're here. And it
Yeah.
sounds weird to say that, but it's the truth. We all have spirit in you. It's just depending on what's keeping you contracted and congested on a day-to-day basis.
And I feel like it's just so much fear and so much
Oh,
survival,
100%.
so much
Yeah.
like, and that's actually another question I have is just how this all, because even in a lot of the work I've done or being in therapy and stuff like that, you talk a lot about the nervous system and
Hmm.
being in fight flight. And a
Yeah.
lot of people have been in fight flight their whole lives or just
Yeah.
are living that way constant. So how
Right.
does this work relate to the fight flight system and
Oh, absolutely. Well, our flow sequence and all the work that we do is predicated. Ooh, a little tickle there. But our flow sequence within the subconscious dynamics is predicated on the power five of non-sleep deep rest. So non-sleep deep rest through research and a few deeper, meta-analysis has found that it is 5 times more restorative and reparative than sleep itself. Right.
wow.
So if we can teach you the power five, which is mental rehearsal, meditation, creative imagery, you also have visualization and scanning somatically with your awareness, which is also known as yoga nidra. If we can teach you all those techniques, you're going to have a cool down system. So for instance, if I just told you to visualize my hand being placed right on your C7, which is right where your back and your neck meet, and just
Yep.
visualizing it there and being held there, your notch of stress will incrementally go down just subtly. Right?
Wow.
That's the thing. So if we teach you how to target specific parts of the anatomy within the brain with these specific sequences, you can cool anything down. By now, just doing that, now here's the assigned meaning behind the neuroscience. If I had you visualize my hand placed on your C7, most people don't realize that is a direct communication to the hippocampus, which is the main driver of the access of memories. And
Yep.
when that starts to open up, guess what happens to the amygdala? It shrinks. And the amygdala is that little almond shape that takes care of all the fear,
Yep.
all the anxiety, all
Yep.
the stress that's being ran through your body. Right. So just by simply having somebody close their eyes and visualizing a person that they love, just placing their hand on their C7, or somebody just in your presence that's in your person, just do that on a consistent basis.
Yep.
Right. That stuff right there is the quintessential aspects of how we target through non-sleep deep rest deeper components to the parasympathetic nervous system.
That's just incredible work. Like, oh my God. You must be like love what you do every day.
Yeah, I mean it's the ultimate challenge. I love what I get to do because I love people, but obviously business is ultimate challenge, right? You have to still, learn the ins and outs of how to take care of yourself too,
Yes.
and that's the biggest challenge too that I've learned through this process is as much as you love what you do and you could
Yep.
be obsessed with it, it does come with a lot of heartache because you do have to sacrifice things to be able to get to this level, and that's always, it comes with a unique challenge too. So I
Yep.
do love what I do, I'm very extremely passionate, but you have to sacrifice a lot to get to this point where you can just be, at ease.
Yeah. And just be. I think that's even
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
yep.
and it's important. I mean, mental health is the, biggest crisis. It's at a fundamental crisis, and it has been for the last couple of years, obviously due to what's transpired since 2020.
Yep.
And rightfully so. People lost their minds.
Yeah.
People didn't know what was truth. People were told this and then that and then this, and then all the agendas were there to keep you confused. And when
Mhm.
you keep you confused, what did we talk about? Right?
Yeah.
When you're confused through the system, there's
Yep.
no directive purpose going forward, and you can start to see that really really hit home because you'll see it, more with time progressing, especially with, the compounding effect in play.
Yep. No, I think that's amazing. And is there anything else you want to tell people that we didn't cover right now? Like, you know,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only thing, like, we do free calls on Thursday. It's our
okay.
preliminary platform for our upcoming podcast that will be launching in late 2024. We're just, utilizing just the small team that we have right now because it's only 5 of us. The preliminary platform is just called the Healing Underground. Right? You can
Okay.
get the link specifically on Instagram. You can come hang out with us. It's just this opportunity for you to ask questions, very similar to this, get a background just of how we've developed this process. And obviously we do have regulars that show up. So sometimes we just talk about topics that are just kind of more pertaining to them. And we keep it very communal. So anybody that's new that comes in, we break down this process step by step on what exactly you can expect to work with us. Like, and I always tell people, you always get, out what you put in, but this is different. Like, this is really, really different because of its gentleness, because it's non-invasiveness, and also because of, what we found as the ideal challenge, right? You want to be challenged to a certain point, but you don't want to be stretched too thin to the point where your body says no, right? We want to be able to keep that healthy harmony within that process. So yeah, come hang out with us on Thursdays, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can find that link within our Facebook group or obviously Instagram as well. It's just High Vibe Holonomics. And we're still in the process of developing our new infrastructure with our back office and our student login. That's transitioning from highvibehealing.info to our new system that will be launched in 2024. But that's it. Come hang out with us. If you need other information, it's every Thursday unless otherwise noted.
Okay. And are people working with you in this process one-on-one, and that this is just like a Q&A and such? Okay.
Yep. So also in the process too, like we have, like, if you come into any type of actual facilitation, we go through developmental training through this process. Because I can't remember, we just had 6 students just come in the last 10 days, which is really awesome.
That's great.
But we do, I would say we have close to like 18 students right now. So 18 students. And through that process, we get to teach these fundamental techniques so you can do them at home.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Because what I want you to be is independent within your own mind, so you can come interdependent with people, right?
Yep.
And because if you're still stuck working with facilitation, you have to understand that's called codependency. Codependency is the emotional side of things. Dependency is the physical side of things. So if you still have to keep coming back, you're codependent on my facilitation. We don't want that, right? We don't want that. We don't want that at all, because one, that's a trauma response. That's also, extremely like non-conducive to the reason why you invest so much. But also at the same time, like, codependency is not found in nature, right? Nature is an interdependent aspect. And yeah, that's just what we teach through those regenerative principles.
I'm smiling a lot when you say the codependency, because I was totally there. I think I had like 6 or 7 practitioners at one time, and it was like stuck in that, like, but this is going to be the next thing for me, realizing it's like within myself. So it's just, I laugh because, again, I wish I found something like this.
And it's just, you gotta let go. You gotta let go. And if you really just be like, you hone in with the process, like we always tell people, we take people for, we call it energetic literacy. Just like financial literacy, we just call it energetic literacy. We take you from kindergarten all the way to PhD, right? We got to get you to graduate so you know how to not only get energy, but how to properly release energy at the same time.
Yep. I love that so much. And just in closing, what's the biggest piece of advice that you have for people in life, in their healing journey, or in general?
Act now, be consistent, love often.
I love that.
You have no idea. My mentor told me when I was 19, and this stuck with me because I was, still in that developing phase of trying to figure out who I was and what the meaning of life was at 19. But he said this, and this has always hit home with me, and I share this with all my clients. I'm going to remind you, you're going to die one day. Very simple. He said that just stark, and I was like, what am I supposed to do with that at 19? But then I realized when I got older, I was like, okay. And then I went through a near-death experience, and I was like, okay, that is for sure the truth. You are going to die someday, so you might as well, live it out. So I always say, just act now, and just be consistent and love often.
I love that so much. And just, I really appreciate you and your time.
Yeah,
and
always. Thank you.
Wealth of information. I'm excited to get this all, and everything that you mentioned, we'll have that all in the show notes and stuff too, so people can get in touch with you. So,
cool.
But it's been a pleasure meeting you and spending time here. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking another holistic view of your health with us. I hope you've really enjoyed today's discussion, and as always, take control of your own wellness journey by exploring the practitioners and modalities available near you or on our directory at www.holistichealthcollab.com. Don't forget to subscribe here so you don't miss an episode. And you can also find more holistic health tidbits at Holistic Health Collab on Instagram. Please leave a rating and review to help us reach more people that might need to hear this information. If you have any questions about today's show or any ideas for future episodes, or if you just want to reach out, you can contact me directly, Kate Maslowski, at kate@holistichealthcollab.com. You can just put podcast in your subject line. Again, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.